Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to use the drawing tools for Google, which is called Google Drawing. So first we're going to get to it by going to New, and then we click on the More, and we come down to Google Drawings. You can also get to it from Google Docs, but I'm going to do this so that it is a separate drawing all by itself, and it's not tied to a document. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. The first thing I did is I need to go to File, Page Setup, and I need to change how big the image is. So if you want it to fit on a TV, like an old TV, a 4:3 ratio, you can choose 16:9 ratio. That would be most monitors nowadays. 16:10 is probably for more phones. And then you can also do custom, and if you do custom, you can change it to inches, centimeters, points, and pixels. And for what we're doing right now, I'm just going to leave it as it is and not worry about it. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is start off with the basics of the drawing. So I'm going to click here and go to Line. And if I want to draw a line, I just click and it inserts a line. Now, if I press delete, I can get rid of it. If I come here and choose a line, if I click and drag, I can create a line. Okay, and if I want to make a line that is a specific angle, if I hold down the Shift key, I can go at either perfectly horizontal, perfectly vertically, or I can have it at any of the, like 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, that kind of thing. And it will draw that line for me. Okay. Let's see. If you take that, I'm going to switch to the selection tool. If I take this and I come here, I can add an arrow on the end and a dot on the other. There's all kinds of different ones that you can add, open-ended ones and closed-ended ones. They will change if you change the line weight, 2 pixels, 12 pixels, and you can always grab that handle on the end, this little handle, and you can move it around to where you want it to be. If you decide you don't want the ends to be there, you can also switch those off. You can make a dotted line and a dashed line. So if I click on this, I can make it dotted. Notice that the ends are squared off, and so it doesn't really look like a dotted line, but I'll show you in a minute how that will change. Let's put this one up here. I'll make that one a little bit thicker so we can see it as well. You can change the color of the object by selecting on it and then coming here and choosing any color that you want. And if you don't see a color that you like, you can also come down here to the custom tool, click on the plus, and you can go in and you can literally put in the color you want. And that just happens to be the Clearview Blue that we use on the website. So I happen to know that one. Okay, so with the lines, you can also adjust. We talked about, we can go to Format and Borders and Lines here. We talked about changing the color. We talked about changing the line weight. The line type, you can make it a double line. Can you see how that looks? I can come down here to make it a triple line. And again, it's not as easy to see when it's clicked off of. I can also make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it's a triple line. And we can come down here to make it a thin and thick line. And we can finally make it a thick then thin line. Okay, and you'll be able to do that with shapes too later. Okay, let's go back and make that into a just solid line. And I'm going to make it a little bit thinner so it doesn't look so goofy looking. Okay, so I am going to show you the, by the way, there are plenty of other dashed lines. There's dashed lines, dashed and dotted, dashed, all kinds of things here that you can do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and grab a simple shape, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and I'll make the border just a little bit bigger on that one so that you can see, and maybe we'll make the border of that one red so it looks a little bit differently. So I'm going to, I'm going to make it a little bit thicker just so you can see the ends of it, okay? And notice that the end is a little bit rounded off, okay? So by default is rounded off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag across all three of those objects, and when I let go, what I just did is a rubber band select. Okay, so to grab them, I could have clicked and held down the shift key and clicked and select the next one, and still holding down the shift key I can select and select the next one, but they do have rubber band selected, and that sure saves you a lot of time, unless there's something in there that you didn't want to have selected, and then you would have to do it the other way. So now that I've got all three of them selected with a rubber band select, I'm going to go down to Format, Borders and Lines, and we're going to go down here to Border Decorations. And border decorations have to do with how the end of the line is. And so the end of the line will be affected, or since they're dotted here, it will be the ends of the little dots or dashes will be affected, and then the corners will be affected on the rectangle. So the first thing I'm going to choose is a round join, and you can see that on the line nothing happens, on the dashed line nothing happens, and that's already the default choice on the square. It's where they meet, it will be rounded just a little bit. Okay, so rubber band selected again. We're going to go down to Borders and Lines, Border Decorations. I'm going to choose Miter Join. And you notice that on this one, where they joined, the edge is now a mitered edge. And you can think of it as like a window sill or the window pane, how it meets in a nice crisp edge, sharp, pointy edge. Okay, we're going to go down to Borders and Line and choose beveled join now, and when you do, the ends of the rectangle get snipped off, and again the line doesn't change at all. Next thing I'm going to go down to is the butt cap, and I don't know what that does because it doesn't change at all, so clearly it has to do with how it lines up somewhere, but I don't really know what it does on Google Docs. Or Google Drawings. It does different things on Microsoft Word. Okay, we're going to come down to round cap, and now you're going to see a little bit of a difference. So we're going to click round cap, and you'll see now instead of having a squared off little lines, now you have a dashed line. You'll also see up here that the edge of the line gets rounded off here, but notice that our corners where the lines meet do not get changed on here. And then the last one that they have here is by default square cap is how that they would normally join. And now it takes us back to when our dotted lines were squared off. Okay, I'm going to clear our surface by pressing the delete key. And nothing happens. Come on, delete. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to come down to the next line tool. You have an arrow where you're already drawing things with arrows. You have elbow connectors, which you go like this, and if you wanted to label something, it might, a lot of people use that for labeling. Notice that you do get a yellow handle on it, which allows you to move and customize things a little bit. Again, press delete to get rid of it. I'm going to come down to curve. So that's the next one we're going to talk about. If I click and I click and I click, 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 it will do this. It will not end until I double click. Okay, and so there's my line. From here I can make it thicker. I can make it a dashed line and a dotted line, and if I go to Borders and Lines and make it a round cap, you'll see that I get a dotted line. I also can make it a different color, and I can also make it where is it? Format, Borders and Line. I can make it a double dotted line, so that's kind of exciting, and you can also make it tripled. Okay, whoops, I clicked and made another one. Okay, rubber band select, and let's get rid of that so it's out of our way. If you take your curved line and you click and click and click, 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 If I bring it back to where it began, notice it's going to curve it off, and all I have to do is just click once, and then because it completed that line, it filled it in. So now we have the option of filling this in, and again I can make that line thicker and make it look different than it already does. And so it looks like this. However, if I decide I want to make this object have no line, notice I can't make it 0 pixels, but what I can do is change the color to transparent, and then I have a shape that doesn't have a line. This little handle up here at the top, I can click on it and I can rotate that around, so I can really kind of create whatever I want here. I'm going to press delete again. Next thing we're going to come down to is a polyline. The polyline is a little bit disappointing, I think, in that you can't make curvy lines. You just go click, 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 and make straight lines. It does not, with Microsoft Word, we could click and make curvy lines with it, but this one does not do that yet. They haven't developed that yet. Again, if you move it towards the beginning, it will fill it in, and you can make a fill to this shape that we just created. Okay, next thing I have here is a scribble. Again, a little bit disappointing with the scribble tool on Microsoft Word. If I could give it a fill. Scribble tool, how it works is you go like this and you just click. I'm still clicking, and I click and click and click, and when I let go, it ends. So as soon as you let go, it will end. There is no fill option on Scribble. On Microsoft Word there is, but on Google Drawings there is no fill option. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about here is shapes, and there are all kinds of shapes. If you look here, here's a rectangle tool. You have a rounded rectangle tool. You have a rectangle that has a snipped off shape, and when you get one that has a yellow handle, be aware that you have other options that you can adjust those accordingly. If you hold down the Shift key when you draw something, here it is regular. If I hold down the Shift key, it makes it draw in perfect proportions. So that's how you end up with a square or a perfect circle. Okay. Again, you rotate this by the top handles. However, you also have some extra things in here that are the format options. If I click on, and by the way, we can certainly change this to any color that we want. We can make our lines different colors and different thicknesses, just like we did before. Those are awful colors together. Let's make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. Okay, so over here in format options, and if you don't see that, it would be right here. Be careful if your screen is not wide enough, it will show up with 3 dots. That means there's more choices, and you'll have to, that will hide. So make sure you have your Chrome browser at full screen. If you click on format options, you get these extra things. You have size. The nice thing is about this is you don't have to just size it by looking here. You can come here and say, well, I want it to be exactly 2 inches wide and exactly 2 inches tall. You can change your default measurement too, of course. You can notice it's 70% of its original size is what's going on. I can also say I want the angle to be at a 60-degree angle, or maybe a 30-degree angle, and I can change it the way I want. And you can also flip it horizontally or flip it vertically, which in a rectangle you're not going to see a whole lot of difference here. You're just going to look like I'm rotating it, so I'll show you more later probably. Okay, so then position, you can change where you want this to go. Now, let's put this back at a 0-degree angle, and I want to make sure that you understand how this is working. What it's doing here is it's going to resize it from the top left corner handle, okay? If you want to choose it from the center, then it will center the object from the center point of this object. So I'm going to switch back to the top left, and I can say that the X position, I want exactly 1 inch from the side, and I could have it 1 inch from the so the X and the Y coordinates 1 inch. So if you needed to have something exactly, you know, so far in your page, you could line that up by changing your X and your Y coordinates. And of course, if you just click on it and move it, it will move by itself. But if you needed precise, you could do it from the format options. I'm going to skip text fitting because I haven't worked a whole lot of a text, and I'm not going to do that for this lesson. So next thing I want to do is drop shadow. So if you click on it, it automatically gives you a drop shadow. You can't see it a whole lot until we increase the distance. So let's increase that distance. And right now you can see that I have a little drop shadow here. It's blue. If I decided I wanted to change the drop shadow color, I can change it maybe to a lighter blue. Transparency is how much it is transparent. So if it is 0% transparent, it is just a regular shadow and not transparent. But if you make it more transparent, it's going to be more see-through. Okay. Again, increase the distance so we can see it a little bit more. And then the blur, see how the blur is 0% blurred, and you can blur it a little bit more to make it more blurry or not blurry. So I made it a little bit less transparent. So that is how you can adjust your shadow. And again, if you don't want it, you just uncheck the drop shadow there. Okay, next thing is a reflection. And if you click on the reflection, you're going to see a reflection down here. Again, distance is how far away it is from the object. And size is how big of that reflection you're going to have. And transparency is how much it is showing up or not showing up. So it is, if it is 100% showing up, or 100% transparency rather, you can't see it at all. So that is reflection. All right, let's get rid of that and go back to our basic shape. And I'm going to drag it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. If I come down to my colors, not only can I choose all of these colors here, but I can also choose a custom color and make it whatever colors I want, no matter how ugly they are. You can also change and make it have a gradient. So if you click on here, you see solid. If you come here, you can, by the way, you can make it transparent if you want to. The gradient, if I click on gradient, there are some preset gradients in here that I can choose. And that can make it kind of fun. What makes it even more fun is if you have, let me show you, if I draw a circle, and again, I'm going to hold down the Shift key as I draw it. So if it looks like this, if I hold down the Shift key, I make sure I draw a perfect circle. And I can have this have no lines, so I'm going to go to transparent, and then I'm going to go back here to gradient, and I'm going to choose a gradient that is dark on the outside and lighter on the inside. And you can see that I can make this thing start looking like it is three-dimensional by having a sphere. But wait, there's more. I can come here to gradient, and I can come to custom, and I can make my own gradient. Now, by default, this is a radial gradient. If I choose a linear gradient means it lines up in a line. So it starts up with one color here and goes to the other color here. If I come to custom gradient, I can change the angle of that gradient. Okay, and you can type in your own numbers here, or you can just choose some of the pre-selected one, and you can see the angle that it's coming from. If I come down here, I can go back and make it a radial gradient, but this time I'm going to go and change my own color. Maybe I want this color to be a darker red and the lighter red on the outside, and so it's a little bit more dramatic. And then you can get really exciting about it, and you can actually go and add your own stops to it. So I could say add and make this one orange, and add and make this one yellow, and click add and make that one green, and add and make that one blue. And let's go and change this last one to purple, and I can distribute them a little bit more evenly or however you want, and click OK. And now I have this rainbow gradient that is not showing a whole lot because I made it a radial gradient. Let's change it into linear gradient, and then I can see all of the colors. Okay, so you can make your own gradients. Oh boy, don't you wish you were in class right now so you could do this? But wait, you can do this now. This is on Google Drawing, and you can access it from home. So if you want to stop the video and play with it right now, you can. Isn't that great? All right, I've cleared my screen now. I'm going to come down to some other shapes. You have a whole bunch of other shapes here. You have a little smiley face. Again, if I don't hold down the shift key, it's going to warp it, and so I can draw this little smiley face. Notice that there's a yellow handle on here, so you can adjust things. You can change the colors of all of those things. There are hearts. If you change the heart, you can add a gradient to it. You can do all kinds of things. You can, what you got to do here is you got to look at these shapes and go, okay, let's see, what can I do here? If you grab the triangle tool, you can adjust that and make it a different kind of triangle. I was trying to adjust it. You get a different, that's what I was looking for right here, is this yellow handle that you can adjust it. Anytime you get the yellow handle, you're going to get some added adjustments that you don't normally get. There are some arrows here. I can click and draw an arrow. Now, just because you see the shape as it is doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be. All you have to do is adjust things a little bit, and you can customize these to be just about anything you want. Can you imagine where I'm going here? Okay, so suddenly I've made a Christmas tree out of an arrow. It looks completely different than it did before. Next, I'm going to talk about arranging object. Every time you draw an object on your canvas, you are creating an object, and everything is all layered. So you can see as these move around, there are objects that are on top of each other. So if I wanted this red object to be above everything else, what I could do is I could come down to arrange and then order, and I could tell this one to bring to the front. Notice there are keyboard shortcuts. If you want to use them, you don't have to. So you can click and bring that to the front, or you can go to order and send it to the back, or you could say bring it forward, bring it forward. I clicked off of it, sorry. I go bring forward and then bring forward and bring forward, and that's where using the keyboard shortcuts would be handy, because if I use the keyboard shortcut control forward or control down to bring it backwards, it would make it a lot faster to arrange those things. So their objects are layered on top of each other like pancakes, so think about that. If you need something to come forward, you have to arrange it. Okay, the other thing you can do, and I'm going to rubber band select these all, you can go to align and you can left align all of these things. So now all the left edges are going to line up, and you can center all of the objects. You can right align them. You can also do that with the tops of the objects and the bottoms of the objects so they can align properly. You can go to distribute, where you want to distribute them horizontally, and you can see that they have spread out evenly, which is a strange looking distribution, but let's say you had several pictures in a row, you could distribute them. You can also distribute them vertically, and that actually took it off the page by doing that. So again, if you had several pictures in a row, that would probably make a lot more sense. You can come down here to center them on the page, and I could center them horizontally. So again, watch it off the side, and I could go to center horizontally. Now it's centered on my document, and I can center them vertically as well. I can also come down here to rotate, and I could say, well, I want these to rotate exactly 90 degrees, or I could say I want them to flip horizontally and line up exactly as they are. So be aware that the arrange menu gives you a lot of things. The other thing you can do here is you can group objects. So let's not group all of these together. Let's take this one right here and this one right here. I can rubber band select, or I can select one, hold down the shift key and select. And so those two now I want to become one object, so I can come here and go to group, and now they function as one object and they move around together. If I click off of them and I move them again, they select as a group. So if you create something and you want it to stay together, you can group it together. If you decide you do not want it grouped together, you just come down here to the Arrange menu and go to Ungroup. And now click off of it and you can move those two as individual objects. All right, next I'm going to rubber band select all these again. Maybe rubber band select all these and press delete. And I'm going to go to the text box and click and drag and insert a text box. From this text box, I can type whatever I want. And you certainly don't want to stick with a boring font. Let's see if we can come up with something exciting. How about Chewy? That would make a fun font. I'm going to make this thing really big. Let's go here. I can also type in, if the font doesn't go big enough, just go ahead and type in your own number. Come on. 150. Oops, it's not big enough. No problem. I can adjust it. I can grab this. I can write a line and I can center these things. I can distribute it at the top or the middle or the bottom. So here's the middle. That was the bottom. That was the middle. And top is default. I can, if I have different spacing, different lines, I can have the spacing change. I can, of course, change the color of it. Oops, that's the border of the box. I don't want to do that. I can change the color of the text here. I can also change the box color, and I can have the line on the box be a certain color. I can have it be thick, and I can have it be dotted and dashed and all that stuff. The nice thing about a text box is that you can move it anywhere you want on the page. Remember that this is still an object, so that when we go to put it back in something, it will look like that. So let's keep this as it is right here, and I'll rotate it just a little bit less and have it like that. Now if I go to back to Google Drive and I go to File, File, New, and I go to a new Google Doc, and if I want to insert this into my document, I can go to Insert, Drawing. Now, here's the problem. I didn't title this drawing. I need to go here and call it Golski so I can find it later. Okay, I should have done that. So I'm going to go to Insert, Drawing, and go to From Drive because I saved it to my Google Drive. It will show up as my recent drawing. And notice it's got an old preview window, but I know it's what it is because of the name of it. If I click select and enter, here's where you have to decide what you want to do. If you want to insert it unlinked, then that means it inserts as it is at this moment in time, and that's the way it is. If you insert it as linked to source, that means if I change the image later, this will also update. So you probably want to say link to source most of the time. That way if you update it, you can have it. And notice it comes in just like this, and notice it comes in as squared off because that's the size of the image that I made. But if I go back here to Google Drawings and I rotate this around and I come back over here, this will say update because it has been changed. And so if I click, now it updates it to the newest version of that. So that's kind of clever. So let's go back here. I'm actually going to delete this. The last thing I want to show you for today is going to Insert, and we're going to come down here to Word Art. Now there's a whole bunch of other things, charts and diagrams, and you can play with all of those later. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go to Word Art, and I'm going to type my name, and I'm going to press Enter. And notice if you press Shift Enter, you could make several lines of things. So here it is right here. I can change that font to be a different font, and I can do that by, how do I do that? Oh yes, here, silly me, I'm a little asleep this morning. I can come down here and choose all your fonts. Don't forget you can go into and update it. I want to choose one that's a thicker font just to show you what we can do here. Notice that you can click on the handles and you can warp this font and make it bigger and stretched out more than it is. I can fill it in with different colors. I can fill it in with gradients. I'm going to choose that gradient that I had before. I'm going to come down here to custom, and I want to change the angle of that so that it is 90 degrees. I want it to go up and down. And I can make the border of that be thicker and have dots, and again I can go to borders and lines and change the border decoration to be a rounded cap, and so now I have it a polka dotted text, and oh my goodness, talk about the fun of that. Okay, so that is another fun thing that you can do, and I'm going to wrap it up there. That's all I'm going to show you for today.